Hi there. My name's Alonzo, but you could just call me Zo. And I have some feelings towards Sparking Zero, but I do want to honestly say that this is a much better game than when it launched in October of 2024. As of the recording of this, it is May of 2025, and a bevy of changes have happened to this game since then. Before anyone asks, don't worry, the Namek Saga video is in the works. I also have some other videos in the works too. We'll talk about that a little later in the video, but as of right now, we're talking about Sparking Zero. And what I'd like to talk about before we even say anything is I have a long history with the Sparking series in general, or Budokai Tenkaichi as it is known here in the West. I've been playing these games literally since they first came out here, the very first one. I've played Budokai Tenkaichi 3 for an ungodly amount of hours. I've even played Tenkaichi Tag Team on the PSP. I've played both Raging Blast games a lot. I've even played Ultimate Tenkaichi, Rock, Paper, Scissors, the game. and I've played a lot of Dragon Ball games over my years, damn near every single one that's released in the West that I could. So I have a long history with this franchise in particular, so I wouldn't call myself like a professional or anything of the sort, but I definitely have a feel of what these games should feel like, should play like, and what the experience should be akin to. And for a while, I felt like Sparking Zero, especially upon release, was not that. I felt like this game did not meet my expectations. While my expectations were probably very high because the marketing for the game sold it as a direct sequel to Budokai Tenkaichi 3, one of my favorite Dragon Ball games of all time. I kind of had high expectations, and unfortunately, Sparking Zero in the beginning did not meet those expectations. I didn't think it was a bad game by any means. I don't think this game is trash or garbage, This is not an Ultimate Battle 22. This is not a GT Final Bout. This is not a freaking Battle of Z situation. This game is just, at the time, it was just okay when I was expecting, at the very least, good. But as it is right now, though, after the bevy of changes that have come into the game through patch after patch and update after update, I have to say that as a product now, Sparking Zero is significantly better for more than a few reasons, and I'm going to go into that today, actually. So if you'd like more of these type of fighting game analytical videos of me kind of going into more mechanical stuff in fighting games, because I love fighting games. I'm a huge fighting game guy, especially for Dragon Ball games. So if you want me to go into more of these types of videos, please let me know. Put a like, put a comment down below, and tell me your thoughts on Sparking Zero and what you think. And before we even get into it, thanks for watching. So I need y'all to kind of put your minds back to where Sparking Zero was in October of 2024, where a lot of mechanics in the game were kind of crazy. The game felt very off. Having to explain that to a lot of people who don't necessarily understand the concept of game feel was very difficult, but I feel like I'm able to put it into words. So Sparking Zero in the beginning had a issue where things like hit stop and combo weight felt non-existent. It felt like I was slapping tissue paper and characters were just kind of just waving their arms around, and there was no real impact to a lot of attacks, right? And while I still say that problem still kind of persists a little bit here and there, I still think that certain, rush attacks don't really feel like they have too much impact. Smash attacks don't necessarily feel as impactful as they could. I feel like it's a lot better. The game feel does feel better. I feel like the combos in particular, the cooldown in between a lot of stuff is not as egregious as it was before. The game's control and feel significantly better than it did in the early stages of the game's release. I don't know how to, I guess, audibly convey that, but I feel like most people who play the game know what I'm talking about. there is a certain feel in the control that was there in BT3 that was not there in the beginning of Sparking Zero, and it definitely feels like they're working towards that now. It's not perfect. It doesn't feel exactly as it should, because like I said, there's still little moments like this that feel a little weightless, that, you know, feel a little weird, that feel a little icky, I guess. But it's definitely a lot better, and I guess a lot of that would have to do with camera control and, you know, the game actually having more hit stop than before. Maybe they should add a little bit more to sort of make it perfect, but as it is right now, it is significantly better. Another thing that I feel like they could improve upon in the game for sure, and this is something that was kind of a plague in the beginning of the game's life. A lot of the defensive mechanics in the game need a little bit of an overhaul. Not an overhaul, but I'd say they need some tweaking. For one in particular, perception. This was everyone's bane at the beginning of the game because it was just far too strong. You would have people rush, perception, rush, perception, rush, dodge, into perception. You know, that was the meta for the game at the time, you know. And I just want to also preface, I am not like a pro at Sparking Zero or Tenkaichi or anything like that. I am very much a casual fan, but I feel like these things were so problematic, they even affected the game to a casual level. So that is why I'm here talking about it now. So definitely, for sure, they nerfed perception. It's nowhere near as powerful as it used to be. You can't just spam it like you could before. You actually have to sort of time it. The key consumption on it is significantly more, so there's actually a little bit of a risk to that reward. But there are some things about the mechanic that I do feel need some changing. Particularly this aspect of it that I was not aware until I saw a video about it. I will link that video below, but when you do perception, similar to everything else in the game, when you are not facing your opponent and you do an action, you will automatically autocorrect in their direction, right? If you're locked onto them, you will just automatically autocorrect, right? That's how it's always been for a lot of things, right? However, it's the same thing for perception. I think for a defensive mechanic like this, it should not function like this. If I do perception, I should not be able to autocorrect into my opponent's direction, because this is essentially, like in Street Fighter 6, a parry. So being able to just automatically turn in the direction like this is a problem, and for months I was wondering why this mechanic was catching me. I'd be like behind somebody, hitting them, and then if there was a slight gap, which in the beginning of the game there was a lot of gaps in rush chains because rush chains weren't considered true combos in the beginning of the game, which thank God that's not a problem anymore. They could just perception and then like turn around when they do it, and they would get you because there was a gap, so they were just able to get you. While I have to also admit, this problem has been slightly mitigated because now, with perception, there's a turnaround animation, just like with everything you do when you're turned around. So you have to wait for the turnaround animation to happen. It's a little faster when you do perception, actually. Yeah, it's a little faster. So it's still... I still think that being able to do this in general is a problem. I feel like this should be removed. If I perception, I should do it in the direction that I'm in. Make this a more skill-based mechanic, in my opinion. That is number one in terms of what they should do for defensive mechanics. Number two, revenge counter. Wow, I am not making revenge counter look good right now. But revenge counter, as it is right now, kinda sucks. I don't mind the fact that it costs meter. I don't mind the fact that it costs... I don't mind the fact that it does that. It just kind of resets you to neutral. You know, I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. I don't mind any of that. What I do mind is that if I am turned around, and I am being smacked, I cannot revenge counter to save my life. I feel like, personally, if I'm being hit from the back, I should be able to revenge counter because this costs meter. This costs resource. There is no reason for revenge counter to not be doable if an opponent is hitting you from behind. I feel like that is a detriment to the mechanic because it can be baited as well. I feel like that's also important to note as well. You know, you could do that to bait it. You could do Ki Blast. You know, and then you can perception revenge counter. You know, so, you know, you can perception it. There are so many ways to defend against it. I don't understand why you're not able to do it when being hit from behind, considering that it is one of the few defensive mechanics that actually really costs something. So I feel like that's something that genuinely needs to be changed. That's something that 100% needs to be changed. Let revenge counter be doable when being attacked from behind. I feel like that wouldn't be busted. I feel like that would be perfectly fine, considering that it costs resource, it resets both characters to neutral, and it can be baited. So even if you were able to do it from behind, you could probably you probably have more than enough time to perception them or vanish it or whatever, right? There's so many ways to defend against it, even if that were the case. So I feel like that wouldn't necessarily be a problem. Another thing that I feel like could be improved in Sparking Zero as well is actually one of the movement mechanics. So to preface this, the devs specifically, when they were making Sparking Zero, said that they wanted to emphasize this game's scale. So in order to do that, they wanted to make these maps huge. Like, I can get very far away from Kui in this map. I can get very far away. No Tenkaichi game has had maps this big, right? I'm very far away. He's all the way over there. And in order to emphasize that, in order to emphasize the scale, they also have to emphasize the character's speed, because you have to be able to move around very quickly. So the dash that was in Budokai Tenkaichi 3 is now every character's base movement speed when they're not in melee range, right? So to mitigate this, they added something called Ki Dash, which is like a little short burst. I like to call it a burst dash. It's like a little short burst dash that you press the button, you get like a little burst of speed, a little sonic speed, a little burst, and it moves you forward, moves you to the side. You can do it in any direction. You can do it ascending, descending, you know, all that good cushion alcohol. And with that, you know, it gives you some like really tricky movement too. Like, you can do stuff like this. You can do, like, you can be in the air, you can do stuff like this, you know. Like, there's plenty of, like, stuff you could do with it. You know, you could do, like, you could do, like, a dash jump, and it actually follows your momentum, right? And that's pretty cool. But the main issue that I have with the burst dash is there is a cooldown between every button press that does not allow you to use this mechanic to its fullest potential, in my opinion. Now, am I saying that I should just be able to machine gun this thing and just be burst dashing all over the place? Absolutely not. That would be ridiculous, especially since this thing costs ki. I feel like that would be ridiculous. What they should do, and this would be the optimal change, let me have 2 ki dashes before the cooldown of the button press. So if I do 2 button presses here, I should be able to cancel into another ki dash, maybe into another direction, maybe forward, maybe upwards. You know, I should be able to do that twice before the cooldown, and I feel like that would greatly improve this mechanic significantly. You would be able to do a lot more with the dash if you were able to do it like that. Think of it kind of like how Gogeta in Fighters, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta has 2 air dashes. Think of it like that. And tell me that wouldn't feel much better as a movement mechanic in a game like this, where the maps are so big, and let's be real, a lot of the time characters are gonna be far away from each other like this, so you're going to be pressing on this button a lot. So it would help if you were able to do like maybe 2 in a row before the cooldown. I feel like that would be a significantly better change. But as it is right now, it's not bad. It's just not as good as it could be, because I can still do stuff like this, you know, you know, like you can still do some cool stuff, I guess. So it's fine. But that could be an improvement that I would want for the game personally. And that's really all I have to say about it right now. I feel like, once again, Sparking Zero is a significantly better game than it was initially, and it is getting better. So kudos to Spike Chunsoft for actually listening to fan demand and, actively improving the game, because they didn't have to. They really didn't have to. They already have our money. They already have my $70. So, they didn't have to, but they did, and I appreciate that. So, if you like this, please let me know. Put a comment down below. Let me know if you want me to deep dive into other Dragon Ball games or other fighting games in general, and, my thoughts and prayers for them, I guess, in this case. And, I'll more than gladly do that if I own the game. And yeah, give a like, give a subscribe, and let me know how you feel. The Namek Saga Vegeta video is on the way, and there's some other fighting game videos that are also on the way as well. Some videos of me and my friends playing the Capcom Fighting Collection 2, because I am a huge fighting game nut. And if you want to see more fighting game content on the channel, you have no choice. It's coming anyway. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay beautiful.